আসসালামু আলাইকুম। ফোকাস টিভির আজকের বিশেষ পর্বে আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আমরা আজ একজন খুবই ইয়াং ইমিগ্রেন্টের সাথে কথা বলব, যিনি তার জীবনের অভিজ্ঞতা এবং বিভিন্ন এক্সপেরিয়েন্স আমাদের সাথে শেয়ার করবেন। আসসালামু আলাইকুম, হাউ আর ইউ?
I'm good. Walaikum assalam and assalamu alaikum to everybody who's watching.
Walaikum assalam. So our first question is, could you briefly tell us about your birth and where you grew up?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised here in New York City, specifically in Brooklyn. And I grew up in a family full of very knowledgeable people. My father, he also is an economist. He has studied under Mom and Yunus, and he's a professor. My mom as well, she's a teacher. So growing up, education has always been a big part of my background. So I was always born and raised in New York City, and I went to school here, went to my university. After I graduated, I also all my work I've pretty much spent doing in Manhattan and never really left New York City. So currently, I'm actually working for the state government. Um, Despite working for the state government, I'm actually still based in New York City. So I've never actually left this area.
Okay. So we know from films and everything about the rich culture of Brooklyn. You grew up
Yes.
there, right? So could you tell me about some interesting things about Brooklyn?
Yeah, there's a even though there's this relatively small Bangladeshi community in America, there is a concentrated amount of that in Brooklyn and especially Queens. But in Brooklyn, it's still a big, very colorful population. There's even a little bit of a little Bangladesh here in Brooklyn, right next to little Pakistan, next to little Russia, next to little Uzbekistan, and you have such a rich mixing of cultures, and you have a lot of even Bideshi people, a lot of American people who come and eat our food. They like eating our fushka. They like eating our biryani, and they know that we love fish. So we have a lot of different food restaurants here, and a lot of American people. They come and visit all the time.
Okay, great. So would you like to say something about Bangladeshi society and culture in New York?
Yeah, I feel like growing up, there wasn't as many opportunities to connect with many Bengali people, but these days I've been noticing there's more events. The consulate, for example, they're setting up more events, cultural events, noting important dates in our history, Bangladeshi history. And there's been a little bit more of effort, I'd say, for Bengali people, younger and older generation, to get together more, especially in New York these days.
Yeah. So what kind of festivals and cultural activities do you do at New York in Bangladeshi communities?
Yeah, during there have been always picnics, for depending on which part of Bangladesh you are. There's also a lot of, and a lot of praise for the older generation for setting this up, but a lot of alumni associations from different universities in Bangladesh that the older generation sets up. There's a Boishaki Mela. There's whenever Independence Day comes, there's also some sort of events in the consulate that we take part
Okay.
in.
Okay, that's great. So our next question is, do you visit Bangladesh? How many times have you been here? And please share some of the good and bad experiences from your travels to Bangladesh.
I've actually, unfortunately, only been able to visit once when I was maybe 8 years old, but that one experience I had did have a big experience on me. Going there, as an 8-year-old child and being born in America, you're used to growing up with a PlayStation, McDonald's, and AC, air conditioning all the time, and you go
Yeah.
over to Bangladesh and it's completely different, especially in that time. I think it was 2008. So, Bangladesh has obviously developed a lot since then, but when I visited, it was very there was a lot more poverty, a lot more young people. I saw, another 8-year-old, same age as you, who's begging on the street. Puts, especially as a, what's the word, Probashi Bangali, as somebody who's living outside of Bangladesh, it puts more context into your background. How grateful we should be for everything we have compared to a lot of the people who are struggling over there. But I think it's important for us, as even though we're not, in Bangladesh, to send in the remittance money, help out our family members, and invest, in Bangladesh in whatever way that is possible.
Yes, definitely. Do you know much about the education system in Bangladesh?
I'm not too familiar, but I believe it's being improved right now at the moment, or at least that's the plan, I believe.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
No, I don't. I'm not too familiar with the education system there, but I know that there's been more efforts to develop that right now.
Yes, our interim government is trying a lot to fix that. So, our next question is, you know that the people around your age, or I'd say my age, has done a big revolution in Bangladesh. What do you
Yeah,
say about?
I'm really happy. I'm happy to see the younger people, my generation and our generation, being sick and fed up, to be honest, with the way things have been. Similar in America. Not to get myself in any trouble or anything, but when you have so much of the same thing going on for a long time, and if you don't give the younger people a good chance at a career, a job, the ability to have a family or own some property or a car, that's going to lead to protests. That's going to lead to, or just simply as speak freely. The freedom of speech.
Yeah,
I know many students suffered for what they had to say. So I'm really proud of Bangladeshi students for taking over and doing what they could to bring that change into their life. Inshallah, it's all gonna go well. So
yeah, inshallah. Are you planning to come Bangladesh during election?
uh, it depends. I'm learning that it's always best to visit when you're younger, because that's when
Yeah,
your schedule is more free. The more work we do, I have a full-time job. I'm also actually studying to get an MBA, and it's hard to manage all that. So hopefully I will be able to visit around, maybe not during the time of the election, but maybe after it. So for at least a couple of weeks.
yeah. It's in a couple of weeks. Not so much time remaining for the election, actually. So, moving to
Yeah.
our next question. Mm, Tell me more about your studies in America.
Yeah, I studied economics, business economics in undergrad, and I actually did minor in art. A lot of the inspiration came from a Bengali artist, SM Sultan, who did a lot of watercolors and a lot of scenery in Bangladesh, just of like the rural life. So I did some art based around that. I also did some art around portraits. Before Muhammad Yunus was the prime minister, interim prime minister of Bangladesh, I actually did a portrait of him. Um, and in my school, everybody was just very impressed by like how who he was and how I did it. So um, yeah, so I studied economics and as my main focus though in school. And once the time came around, I graduated. I worked in banking for a little bit, business management consulting. Like a lot of people our young age, they do in their early 20s. You flip around in different industries until you find one that you like. And eventually, I was referred by a connection of mine to work for the state government in construction development. So, New York City, New York State, we have a massive budget. Um, we do a lot of work with the infrastructure of the state. So, there's always a lot of work that needs to be done. So, that's what I'm currently doing. I'm working in the state government in that field, management. And well, I figured that while I have the opportunity, I'll actually also, they're paying for my their scholarships, my graduate degree. So I figured I might as well just get a master's in business administration as well. while I have the opportunity for that. So that's currently what I'm pursuing.
Okay. Can you tell me more about the costing of studies? Maybe how much it costs to get an MBA or let's say BBA or what you're doing? Like,
Yeah, in the United States right now, the cost of education is it's really skyrocketed. Actually, it's very controversial. There's a lot of issues with the loans, student loans that many students are facing, and the government isn't really doing much to help in that sense. And it's difficult for a lot of the young people if you don't have a high-paying job to pay off those loans. But thankfully, I'd say actually my undergrad studies were more expensive than my graduate studies, and it shouldn't be that way. So, but thankfully, I'm in a good place, and I've been able to pay off these loans and debts. But I'd say I've been very fortunate that way. But many people, especially young people, aren't as fortunate. So it's an issue that needs to be worked on here in America.
okay, got it. So you are in a full-time job and you are also pursuing MBA or you are planning to pursue MBA, right?
Currently pursuing it. Yeah.
You are currently pursuing MBA. So how much difficult it is to manage both study and a full-time job?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. In terms of your free time, there's got to be some sacrifices made somewhere. For example, I can't maybe spend as much time, hanging out with friends or, at the gym, for example, or painting. So there's always a cost to your time. As you know, and everyone knows, our time is very expensive. It's the most expensive asset we have, to be honest. Our time. We can make money, but we can't get our time back. So we have to always, dedicate our time appropriately.
Yeah, definitely. So I didn't get the answer perfectly. Can you please clarify more? Like how much difficult it is to
It's
manage
very.
both study and
It's if you want a very short answer, yeah, it's very difficult. But you have to make a sacrifice somewhere. So again, you'll have to cut that time out from something else. But if you're investing in anything, whether that's in education or anything in general, you have to plan accordingly.
okay, got it. So what's your tips or what you suggest to people who are going to America for higher education or any kind of education?
I'd say from Bangladesh specifically.
Yes, specifically for
Yeah,
Bangladeshis.
I'd say for I've seen this with Bangladeshi community who's been raised in Bangladesh. A lot of times there's an opinion that in America, there's everything is fantastic, everything is so great. Um, you come here, everything, life is spectacular, and there's no difficulties. But I'd say it's not as sweet as it looks from the outside. There's a lot of difficulties. There's a high cost of living, and be expect for a tough time. To be honest, it's and not to say that in a discouraging way, but you have to be prepared. To know what you're getting into. So, and the main thing is, once you get this education and once you achieve this, what's the next steps? Always have three plan 3 steps ahead. What are your goals going to be after you complete your education? Where will you be working? What are the options? What does it look like? What is the industry? If you're studying finance, for example, what's the likelihood as a Bangladeshi student, once you graduate, how likely is it that you will be able to stay in America? And if not, what are the prospects of if you travel to a different country, maybe Canada or UAE or the Middle East or maybe even Europe? What is the education? How far can your education lead you in landing a job? Maybe in those countries or back in Bangladesh. Ultimately, I think it's best for us to invest in our own country and bring the skills we learned and invest that in Bangladesh in one way or another. Whether that's through sending money to your family as through remittance, or starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur in Bangladesh. I think that's some things to be considered.
Yes, definitely. That helps a lot. We know that Bangladesh very, uh, very dependent on foreign remittance.
Yep.
So our next question is how difficult it is to land a job in America after studies.
Currently, it's very fascinating. They're saying it's even harder to land a job once you graduate, as opposed to not even having a degree. But those quality jobs aren't the best. So if you want a higher quality, a well-paying job that's respectable, it's fairly difficult. It is difficult, and one of the things anyone needs to know is, you have to have the good connections. You have to network. You can't just study actually. Then while you're a student, you have to be able to make a network. You have to make connections with people. You have to make connections with their connections, and through that, they'll be able to, maybe reference you for a job position, or recommend you for something maybe within their own company or something along those lines. So it's extremely difficult these days to find a very well-paying, respectable job after completing your education. But it's not impossible. I think where there's a will, there's a way. We have a very intelligent population, so it is definitely possible, though.
Got it. So, any last words, or I'd say any few words that you want to say about Focus TV?
No, I think it's great. That you're on the field. I met Majnu on the field in the consulate actually while I was getting the NID. So I think it's great
Yeah,
that you're on the field. I think it's great that you're making the effort to speak to people our age, in the diaspora community. I think that's important. Bangladeshi people, we don't have too much oil, we don't have gas, but one thing we do have is people.
yeah.
So it's really important for us to tap into that resource, because we are also a resource.
Okay, so there was one more question. You just said you got your NID from consulate. How was the experience actually?
It was a little bit confusing. It took a couple of days. I think maybe the consul didn't expect that there would be such a big demand. It was very
Okay,
busy. There was a lot of people there, but I think that's also a good thing that so many people want to take part in elections, and participate in elections. So it looks like after my previous visit, we're gonna get it. So everything's set. Um, I think it's been pretty good overall, though.
okay. So you'll be able to give your vote this time from America, right? And how
Yeah.
do you feel about that?
I'm excited. This is, I've, obviously voted in America before, so this is, and we haven't really had the option or chance to vote in a
Yeah,
Bangladeshi election
us
for
too, actually.
exactly, our both of our entire lives, pretty much, right?
Right.
So it's a very historic step, and it's definitely really wanted to take that opportunity.
Okay, it's great. It was great to talk to you.
Yep.
Hopefully, our audience also get to know a lot of stuff from you, and you know
Yep.
know
Definitely.
more about US life.
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
All right. Thank you so much for the time, Ridoy. Thanks for setting this up,
thank you
and
very much.
peace, love, and respect to all our viewers. So.
Thank you very much for your time as well. ওকে, দর্শক আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানটি দেখার জন্য ফোকাস টিভির অ্যাপটি ডাউনলোড করুন, পাশাপাশি আমাদের ইউটিউব ও ফেসবুক চ্যানেল সাবস্ক্রাইব করে আমাদের সাথেই থাকুন। আগামী পর্বে অন্য কোনো প্রভাবের সাথে আবারও দেখা হবে। সে পর্যন্ত ভালো থাকবেন। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।